I need a vacation. I truly cannot remember the last time I had a day where I had nothing to do, where I could just kick back and relax with no responsibilities whatsoever. So today, I'm giving myself the gift of a vacation in the form of doing absolutely nothing but reading. Hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Anna, and today we are going to be doing a 24-hour readathon. We're going to start in the middle of Saturday and go through until the middle of Sunday. So before we get started in this readathon, we need to pick out our TBR. So let's go on over to the little TBR cart back there. Y'all, I am sweating. It's like 80 degrees in San Diego today, which isn't terrible, but I don't have AC, so it gets so hot in this apartment. So if you start seeing little droplets, just pretend that you didn't, okay? But I don't want to be too strict with this TBR. I think part of keeping a 24-hour readathon fun is being pretty loosey goosey and just kind of going with the flow, reading what I feel like reading when I feel like reading it throughout the day. But I do think it's nice to have some options on hand. So I am in the middle of a couple books right now. The first is Trash by Dorothy Allison. I think this will be a good one because this is a collection of short stories. So if I need to break up, want something a little shorter between books, I can just read a story or two out of this. The other book that I'm in the middle of is this book by Larry Kramer, the title of which I'm not going to say on YouTube, but I just wrapped up my reading vlog, and last week I got through 67 pages of this. I don't know if I'm going to finish this book within these 24 hours. I have about 300 pages left, so it would be doable. I just think this is the kind of book where I can read in like 1 or 2 hour spurts, and then I feel like I would probably be in the mood for something else. But who knows? Maybe I'll like really get into this and want to just finish it. But the writing of this book is interesting. I mentioned it in my reading vlog too, but a lot of it is like we're meeting all these different characters right now in the beginning of the book. And a lot of these introductions of the characters are like these long run on sentences with little interjections that are either kind of jokes or they're giving you more information about the character. So it's it's not hard to follow, but it's a unique writing style that I think you have to like be mindful of and pay attention to. Like obviously you should pay attention to what you're reading. It's just a little different than your average novel, if that makes sense. My point being, because of that, I don't know if it's the perfect book to just sit and read for hours on end, but we'll see. Maybe that's what I'll feel like doing. Who knows? So I'm going to pull out some other options. Like I said, I'm going to keep it loosey goosey. The only caveat that I have is it's Pride Month. I want everything I read to be a queer book written by a queer person. One of the books, though, that I think is a strong option that I'm hoping to get to is Since I Laid My Burden Down by Brontez Purnell. As you can see, it's a pretty short one. I am kind of oscillating between like just reading a couple really long books or finishing a bunch of short books. Another book from an author I've read from before and can definitely read their books in one sitting is The Trees Grew Because I Bled There by Eric LaRocca. I have been craving some horror and like some genre fiction, so I think this is another strong contender to read today. And I wanted to throw a graphic novel in the mix because I think in this 24-hour readathon, it'll be good to break things up with that. So we have Are You My Mother by Alison Bechdel. You might know Alison Bechdel from the Bechdel test. She's also the author of Fun Home. So this is another graphic memoir from her that I'm excited to read. So I also have two John Waters audiobooks checked out from the library. If you don't know who John Waters is, go educate yourself. You're probably like 13 years old. So go look that up, have that coming of age rite of passage. But John Waters is the director of movies like Pink Flamingos, the original Hairspray, Cry Baby, just to name a few. He is my idol. And unfortunately for me, the only book of his that I've read is Liar Mouth, which is his fictional novel. So I have Carsick and Mr. Know It All. I think those are the two titles on hold from the library. So I'm most likely going to be listening to one or both of those within the next 24 hours because I can't think of a better way to spend my time than listening to John Waters talk to me about whatever in the world he feels like talking about. It's about 2 o'clock right now. I have just a couple quick errands to run before we get this 24-hour readathon started, but I will come back and we will begin the reading. All right, it's about 4 o'clock right now, and I'm ready to get started, meaning that I'm going to read from 4 p.m. today to 4 p.m. tomorrow. I am filming on my phone, so I'm going to try my best to hope that this timer on my laptop works, and we're just going to get into reading. I'm starting with this book, as I mentioned. I'm going to try to check in with you guys every hour. So let's get into it. we're a little over an hour into this now. I'm making pretty slow progress so far, to be honest. I'm on page 101 of this book by Larry Kramer, and that means I've read like 33 pages in the past hour, which maybe isn't terrible, but is not great pace, but also who cares? Like, this is just for fun, and I'm having fun. I think now that I'm 100 pages in, I have some firmer thoughts on this book. I'm still enjoying it so far. It's very funny. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that meme that's like something from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I think I'm a little too old to have ever read Diary of a Wimpy Kid, so I don't know. It might be from something else, but it's like this relationship, and there's like all the different people and the relationships that they have with each other. But then people will make it a meme and be like, the dyke dating scene in Brooklyn. That is what this book feels like to me. It is like we're following so many different gay men who are hooking up with each other and like have these different connections to each other. And there's so many that it's very hard to keep track in your mind of like who's connected to who and who's having sex with who and who is hooked up with who and who's in love with who. But our main character is Fred, and Fred has feelings for, is in love with, whatever, with this guy named Dinky. That also gets me to the next thing I wanted to talk about is there are some funny freaking names in here. There is a guy in this book named Randy Dildo, and I dog-eared a page because I wanted to read just this quick section to you. This chapter is our introduction to Randy Dildo, and it starts like this. Randy Dildo stood in his 30th floor suite in the Pierre Tower and looked downtown toward his 30th floor office in the Pan Pacific Tower and thought that it would be wonderful and fitting if he could walk from here to here. If a Jesus walked on the water, couldn't a dildo fly through the air? And Randy Dildo's a very interesting character. I feel like he's going to end up playing a pretty large part in this book, but a good chunk of what I just read were following him and his past sexual awakenings as a teenager. I don't know how much of this I can share, but when he's 15, he comes across two girls who are his age hiding out under a stage in the theater, and they're both sharing something that he also shares a name with, if you catch my drift. And he's watching them and, doing things to himself, but while he's doing that, he boards them up so that they end up trapped in there, and then he goes and he calls the police and is like, some creepy old guy boarded these two lesbians up. So that is pretty much the tone of this book. It's very funny and insane and also pretty hypersexual. A lot of these scenes are people like having casual sex with each other, talking to their friends about the sex that they're having. I guess I said at the start of this clip that 100 pages in I have more solid thoughts, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. I guess my more solid thought is I don't know if I'm liking this book so far, but I'm not sure what to make of it so far, if that makes sense. I do think it is both a satirization of the over sexualization, maybe, of the gay community, especially like gay men specifically, but also I think maybe it's potentially about like internalized homophobia. I don't know. I'm only an hour into this 24 reading challenge. I think for the next hour, I'm going to keep reading some more of this because I was starting to get into the flow state. We'll see how much more of this I can get through in another hour. Hopefully, more than 33 pages, but if not, whatever. This is for fun. Today is for fun. I also am like, girl, if I'm going to be checking in every hour, I cannot be rambling this long in every clip. So, but okay, I'm going to get back to reading now. We are in the same spot, but it has been about an hour and a half later. You might be able to tell the longer I lay here and read, the crazier my hair is becoming. Also, my makeup is coming off on this eye. Um, so, anyway, the plan right now, I think I'm going to pause reading physically and start listening to one of my audiobooks and go on a little walk. I want to go to the grocery store, and this is so random, but I really want to get some lima beans for dinner. I just like remembered the lima beans exist this morning, and I'm like, yeah, I want to have those. I used to love lima beans as a little kid, and as an adult, I don't think I eat them enough. So, in this past hour and a half, I read a little bit more of this one. I got to page 118, and I was gonna keep going. I was like, let me read at least until like page 150 or a nice round number like that. But then I thought, I'm not really feeling this. And the whole point of this 24-hour readathon is to like have fun and give myself a break and relax. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna pause on this and I'm gonna pick up something else. And so I ended up picking up The Trees Grew Because I Bled There by Eric LaRocca. I've read the first two stories so far, so now I'm on page 53, which is not saying too much because the first story doesn't start until page 17. I am enjoying it so far. The first story, well, both stories deal with themes of grief, and the first story is pretty short. I don't think I like that one as much. I would say it's like a 3 star. Like it was good, but it was nothing special. The second story, though, I really enjoyed. I think that's like a 4.5 or 5 star if I had to give it a rating. It kind of reminds me of the drama. If you've watched that movie, in that, I don't want to spoil the drama, but it's talking a lot about like, are we our thoughts and how much our thoughts are us, and different things like that. Like, is it so bad to think about something versus doing it? And it's kind of this protagonist internal struggle about that, also dealing with the loss of her wife and the different, like, negative thoughts that come up as a result of her grief. So I enjoyed that one. I'm excited to keep going. I'm also excited to break into one of these John Waters audiobooks. I think I'm going to start with Carsick, which is the one where he's like hitchhiking across America, because I think that one will be super interesting. So that's the plan for now. I'm going to wash this makeup off my face and go on a walk to the grocery store. And then when I get back, I'll probably go ahead and make dinner because I'm getting a little hungry. It's been like 1 second for you, but it's been a couple hours for me. We have 19 hours and 21 minutes left, so we're a little over 4.5 hours through, which feels kind of wild. It doesn't feel like I've been at this that long. Like I said, I went on my walk. I started listening to John Waters' Carsick first. Let me show you my dinner that I made, because I made dinner while I listened. So we have some buffalo tofu. This is just tofu that I marinated in buffalo sauce. And then chickpea mac and cheese, which I don't think I've had chickpea mac and cheese before, actually. I wanted to have a fun dinner because it's a fun day. So tried that, put some broccoli in it. It's pretty good. And then lima beans. This is my definition of a fun dinner. But excited to eat that. Anyway, Carsick by John Waters. I'm halfway through because I'm listening to the audiobook on 2x speed. What a fantastic choice on my part to include some John Waters audiobooks in this readathon, because it was a great way to like break up the day. I could just listen to that man talk about nothing for hours. Carsick has been a lot of fun. It is about him hitchhiking across America from Baltimore to San Francisco, but I didn't realize that there's 3 parts. Part one is like him making up the best case scenario. Like, for example, it opens up with him getting picked up by this guy who loves underground gross cinema and is like, yeah, I'm just gonna FedEx you $5 million. And there's another part where he gets picked up by his old favorite porn star, and he they do, and then he has a magic butthole. Part two is like worst case scenario, and then part three, I'm assuming, is like the real actual experience. So I'm only through part two so far. It was funny because as I was like making my tofu and stuff, there's a part in part two where he like gets picked up by this wild vegan who feeds him raw tofu, and it makes him sick and makes him like shit his pants. So I was like, that's awesome. But I have a pretty strong stomach, so that's okay. I don't know. I think taking a walk, listening to an audiobook was good to break up the day. And now I'm going to eat my dinner. I think I'm going to go back to physically reading. And I think I'm going to read the Eric LaRocca book, The Trees Grew Because I Bled There. It is body horror, so maybe not the best thing to read while eating dinner, but that's okay. Like I said, I have a pretty strong stomach, so who cares? But yeah, I will check back in with you guys in a little bit, let you know how things are going. You know, I thought to mix things up, I would put you in this corner of my kitchen because I feel like this entire video pretty much so far has been filmed on my couch. But it's like, I'm reading for 24 hours. How am I supposed to make this very visually interesting? I don't know. Also, I have you here because I want to stand out, because I
I've been sitting and reading, and I'm getting very sleepy because quite a lot of time has passed since I last talked to you. It is now like midnight, and I have finished a book, finally. My first finished book so far of this challenge, I guess. I don't know if it's a challenge. Anyway, my first finished book of this 24 hours, and that is The Trees Grew Because I Bled There by Eric LaRocca. When I picked this book up and added it to my TBR, like, I knew somewhere in my mind that this was a collection of short stories, but I think I forgot along the way. Not that that really matters. I think it was actually helpful because it kept me very engaged. And overall, I'm going to give this book, I don't know. I am so tired and it's only midnight. Like, I'm already losing my train of thought and entering like delirium. I go to bed like 11, so not even that much later than I usually go to bed. I don't know why I'm so tired. I am probably tired and unable to speak because I'm usually not up trying to articulate my thoughts about books at this point in the evening. So bear with me. Anyway, I think I'm going to give this book either a 4.25 or 4.5. When I add up all my ratings for all the stories in this book and average them out, it's a 4.3. So regardless, I enjoyed it. I think this book, I like the way that the short stories are arranged. I think every short story is kind of in conversation with the one before it, and I like how it plays with the themes like that. I will say I don't think that this book is as body horror focused as a lot of Eric LaRocca's other work that I've read, but I kind of appreciated that because there is one story in here that is super body horror, kind of in your face, and that one I thought was not cringy. Like, I liked it, but I think it was extremely on the nose, and I gave it 4 stars because I like body horror, okay? I have a soft spot for that shit. Like, that's why I wanted to read this book today, partly, is I want to read about some eyeballs being taken out of some heads, some people peeling their skin off and eating it. And I got some of that in this book, and that's great. But what surprised me were some of the stories, especially towards the end. The last 2 I think were my favorite in the collection. That every story in this book deals with grief in some way and also deals with either parenthood or your relationship with your parents in some way, which are 2 things that are going to get me, girl. You know, I have a tumultuous relationship with my parents, and my dad died when I was 20, so I can relate to some of the themes going on in this book, but I think this is Eric LaRocca at the most, what's the word? Not tender, but very honest and human. Not to say that you can't be honest and human with body horror. I think body horror is one of the most human subgenres there is, but I'm going on a tangent now. I don't know if this convinced you to read this book. I don't know if this is really telling you much about this book, but I enjoyed it. There wasn't a story in here that I would give under like 3 or 3.5 stars. Do I think Eric LaRocca is the best writer of all time? No. Does he scratch a particular itch for me? Absolutely. And this book is exactly what I was in the mood for. So as I mentioned, it's midnight right now, like almost exactly on the dot. And I am not going to be staying up this entire night. Like, I am going to get some sleep, but I do want to read at least one more book before the night is over. And so I'm not up all night. I was like, let me read a graphic novel. And I don't own a ton of graphic novels, so originally I was like, let me read Are You My Mother by Alison Bechdel, because it's the only graphic novel I have that's written by a queer person, to be honest. I have like 3 graphic novels, okay, so cut me some slack. But in my heart of hearts right now, I don't think that I can read a therapy memoir about mother-daughter relationships. I just can't. I don't have it in me. I'm sorry. I have severe mommy issues and it's so late. I don't think I'm mentally prepared. So I have made the executive decision. I think I'm going to read Paper Girls because I think I can get through this one relatively quickly. And 2, even though I don't believe that either of the 2 writers of this are queer in any capacity, there is a queer character. And also, this is a rule I made up for myself. I think it's Pride Month and I'm a lesbian reading whatever I'm reading, so it's a queer experience in some way, and that's good enough for me. My cats are fighting. Everything's falling apart. Okay, we're gonna go read.
So that didn't take very long to read. I think it's, let me see, what time is it? 12:47. So it's not even that late, but I think I'm going to end tonight there because if I start something else, I'm only going to be reading for like an hour and I'm tired. And I would prefer to go to sleep now and wake up earlier tomorrow to start reading again versus trying to stay up late. So I'm sorry if that's disappointing to any of you watching that I'm not staying up the full 24 hours, but I did start this video off by saying that this was like going to be a treat for myself. And I don't think it would be a treat for myself to stay up super late when I'm already pretty tired. So I'm going to go to bed. It's already kind of late for me to be so for real. Anyway, Paper Girls. I picked this up from the Little Free Library not too long ago. Hello, Mookow. Mookow loves to try to play with these fuzzy mics. It is cute, I guess, but also pretty annoying. Anyway, I had picked up Paper Girls from a Little Free Library. I didn't know too much of what it was about at all, like literally nothing, but I like the art style. So I thought that it would be, it's free. It's in a Little Free Library and it's the first volume. And with that in mind, this is definitely a first volume. Like, we are really just starting to barely set up the story. We have our paper girls, they're on their paper route, and then it's not like the apocalypse, but there's some crazy stuff going on. People are disappearing. There's these weird creatures coming in the sky. There's like aliens, maybe, time travelers, maybe, and we're just kind of going along on the ride with them as they try to piece together what the heck is going on. And I think we somewhat have an idea, but by the end of the first volume, we still have a ton of questions. So I do think I would be interested in continuing this. Something that just sucks for me, I feel like graphic novels are so expensive that I never really want to buy them. So maybe I'll see if they have these at the library. But my library has been taking, not to hate on the library, I love the library, but every time I put something on hold lately, it takes like forever. Anyway, I'm so tired, dude. This is why I'm not staying up much later than this. Also, I want to let me go back. I am not hating on the library. I love the library. I think I am more frustrated that I will put something on hold and I will be first in the queue and then it's marked as in transit for weeks. And I know it's not the library's fault, so I'm not mad at the library. I'm mad at the fact that our library is so underfunded right now that there's like apparently, I don't know the exact details, but there's like 5 people who are transferring books, if that. And so it takes forever for things to get transferred from one library to another, which is, again, not the library's fault, but we need to fund our libraries, which I guess is even more reason for me to go support the library by checking out these books from the library. So that is my 1 a.m. rant about the San Diego library system and libraries in general. I am going to go to sleep. I will talk to you guys in the morning. Okay, goodbye.
Good morning. This is the second time I'm filming this clip, and you can probably tell I'm not using my mic. So there's a couple things that happened. The first time I filmed this, my cat I had in the back room because I keep my cats separated when I leave the house because they fight. They're still getting used to each other. If I'm not here to keep an eye on them, it's like World War III up in here, okay? So because I had her in the back room because I'm about to leave, she gets very upset and starts screaming. So she was screaming in the background the whole time. And I was rewatching it to see how much of that got picked up while using the mic. And it was still pretty annoying. So I was like, okay, let me just let her out and I'll refilm this. And then when I did that, my mics weren't connecting, like my Bluetooth mics. So I have to use this little thing and this USB-C to lightning adapter. And then this like just wasn't working, and then it broke off inside my phone. So on the docket for today, I guess, is to get another USB-C to USB adapter, which is really annoying. That just kind of threw my day for a loop. So we have about 6 hours left. I was just about to leave to go get breakfast, get coffee, but I'll go ahead and tell you what I have read so far. I woke up around 8:30-ish this morning. I started this book, Virtuoso, which I did not talk about in my TBR part of this video, but I felt like reading this one. This is what was calling to me. I picked this out of my June TBR jar. It follows two women. The first is a teenager in communist Prague, and the other is a woman who's married to a famous movie star, both lesbians. Their paths do intersect in the beginning of the book briefly, like they cross paths in a hospital. So interested to see how that plays out through the rest of the book. This is 277 pages. I am a slow reader, and this whole mic thing kind of threw me for a loop. That took like 20-ish minutes of my time, but I still want to try to finish this. If I don't finish it, whatever. Like 277 pages in 6 hours, I think I can do it, especially a lot of this is written in chat log. But another thing that I want to finish today is I am reading John Waters' Carsick. I listened to a little bit more of that while I got ready this morning. I have 2 hours of the audiobook left, which will take me about an hour to listen to, and I'm finally getting to the part of the book where he is actually getting picked up by people. Like, it's not just his little fantasies of what might happen. And it's interesting because last night I looked at their Goodreads reviews just out of curiosity, and so many people were so mad about the fact that 2/3 of this book are just John Waters kind of doing whatever he feels like doing, not doing whatever he feels like doing, but pretending, imagining what could happen. And I can understand that, especially if you're not a huge John Waters fan and the selling point of this book for you was that it's like a celebrity who's hitchhiking. Like, I get it, but to me, I don't care. I want to live inside of John Waters' brain. I want him to pontificate to me about literally anything. I will listen to him talk about anything. I want to live in his imagination. But it is exciting now that we're actually getting to the real hitchhiking stories. John Waters is just such a nice guy, and a lot of the people who have picked him up so far are very nice people, and it's one of those things that like gives you a little bit of hope for humanity, but also with the caveat that like, yeah, John Waters is a rich white man, so obviously he's gonna have a different experience hitchhiking than like other demographics of people, other groups of people who aren't at his status and also aren't a celebrity. So it's still interesting. I'm enjoying it. I love John Waters. I'm sure it's going to be a 5-star read. So I'm hoping that I can finish that and I can finish this today. Right now I'm going to go to the coffee shop. I might go read in the park, but we'll see because it's going to be hot as freaking Hades today. But I don't have AC in my apartment, so sometimes it's cooler to be outside in the heat than it is to be stuck in here all stuffy and gross. So we'll see what I end up doing, but I will bring you along with me and we will chat later. And I'm sorry that I don't have a mic right now. Hopefully I can get that resolved as well and run to the store and get a USB-C lightning adapter. Back home. We're on the home stretch. We have just under 2 hours left, and I don't want this to end. You can probably tell I did not get a little adapter for my mic. There wasn't one within walking distance for me, and because there's only a couple hours left of this challenge, I didn't want to spend those hours like driving around town trying to hunt down an adapter. So I apologize that these last couple of clips will be mic free. Hopefully it's not too annoying. I don't want this to be over yet. First of all, I'm having so much fun. The only downside is I can feel myself getting a headache, and I don't know if it's just because I've been staring at pages and words on a white background for like the past 24 hours, or if it's like the sleep that I got, I don't know. But I feel like spiritually, I really want to keep going. And I think that's also because the books that I've been reading this week, it feels like it's been a week of reading, but that I've been reading today and yesterday, I'm really enjoying. So
I'll start off with Carsick, which I just finished like literally 5 minutes ago while I was heating up my lunch. I'm gonna have some leftover chickpea pasta. I feel like I don't have too much to add from what I've shared about it before. I think I'll probably give it 5 stars, maybe like 4.5, but I'm leaning towards 5. Like my enjoyment of it was 5-star enjoyment. I do think the book was strongest when John Waters is actually truly traveling with people, obviously. I think that's kind of what we're here for. But I did still enjoy all of the like fantasies that he had. I thought they were very fun. My upstairs neighbor is vacuuming, and because I don't have a mic, I don't know if it's gonna pick that up, so I apologize if you can hear that. My upstairs neighbor vacuums literally like multiple times a day, which is fine. I just think, I'm like, damn, should I be vacuuming that much? Like, am I dirty because I don't vacuum like 5 times a day? Anyway, like I mentioned earlier, I do think that the fact that John Waters has such a positive experience while he's hitchhiking has a lot to do with, one, the fact that he's famous and people recognized him, and two, the fact that he is a wealthy white man. But I do still think it's interesting to see the Pope of Filth driving and hitchhiking across America. And a lot of people that picked him up didn't even know who he was. Like, for example, there's a recurring character in the book who is like this 20-year-old Republican who picks him up and drives him for a while and then ends up coming and picking him up again way down the line, and is just this like adventurous kind of guy. And it's probably not the type of guy that we would expect to form a bromance with John Waters, but I think that just goes to the universal lovability of John Waters. I liked it. If you're a John Waters fan, I'd recommend. If you're not a John Waters fan, I would still recommend, but I would say you should definitely watch some John Waters movies. That is your homework after watching this video, is to like go watch Pink Flamingos or something. Other than that, I am like 170-ish pages into Virtuoso, and you guys, I think this might be a 5-star. I think this might end up being a 5-star. I don't even know how to explain this book. There's a lot going on. When I talked to you last, I made it sound like it was just following 2 different women, because that's what I thought, but it's really following a multitude of people and actually centers around this girl named Zorka. All of the characters in this book seem to be circled around Zorka, like they all relate to her in some way. And this book is very magical in a lot of ways. There's like kind of elements of magical realism. It's also awesome because it's one of those books where it feels like every single woman is a lesbian, which I enjoy, and I like living in that kind of world. But yeah, every story, every character circles around Zorka. So we are following her friend from when she was a teenager, and then when Zorka's a teenager, she, you know, I think it says in the book what she did. She like steals from her teacher, burns her mother's fur coat. She ends up going to America. Her friend Jaina doesn't really know what happened. And then we're seeing Jaina's life after. She's really missing Zorka. Zorka is missing Jaina. And then Zorka's living her life in America. And we also have Amy, who is the Parisian woman who is married to someone older than her. They met when she was 16, and this woman is 26. But now the woman's 40, so Amy's 30. So some time has passed and they're still together. So not sure how I feel about that. There is also a part of this book where we're seeing chats between a 15-year-old girl and a 35-year-old woman online, and they're kind of going back and forth. And the 15-year-old girl lives in Milwaukee, and the 35-year-old woman lives in Prague as well, or like on the outskirts of Prague. And I think all of these stories are going to end up coming together. And maybe this sounds absolutely wild, but I do think those chats, the internet chats, feel almost, I don't want to say nostalgic to me, but they feel very true to being a young teenager online and being like, I love this old person who's giving me attention, especially as a queer person online. And you know that, like, deep down in your heart, you're not stupid. You know that the person on the other side could be anybody, but you're so lonely that you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna take this attention that I can get, even if I know that maybe like this 35-year-old woman should not be hitting on me as a 15-year-old. This is definitely very weird and bizarre. I was glancing at some of the Fable reviews while I was marking it as currently reading, and I do think this is a divisive book. So if you're not into maybe more taboo subjects, if that really turns you off, then this book probably isn't for you. But I don't think that our author is endorsing those things. I think she's just exploring those things. I think she's just using them to speak to how we treat each other internationally, like how women are treated poorly everywhere. And that's probably a pretty high level way of looking at it. I think there is a lot going on here. I'm excited to finish. Like I said, I have 2 hours left. I have 100 pages left. I think I can do it. If it gets to the 2 hour mark being done and I still have some more pages to read, I'm just gonna finish this right now. My head hurts. So I'm gonna shut the fuck up. I'm gonna start reading and finish this book, and then I will come back to you with my thoughts. It is 4:30 and I have just finished Virtuoso, so did go slightly over the 24-hour mark. But to be fair, I did take a little tiny break because I was starting to get a headache, so whatever, it kind of averages out to 24 hours anyway. I realized after finishing this book that I don't think I have really done it very much justice in my past descriptions, and I thought, you know, maybe I should give myself a little bit of space after immediately finishing this to sit on my thoughts and think about how I would even begin to describe this book to you. But I think that I could sit and ponder for weeks and I still wouldn't really know how to summarize this book. I still wouldn't really know how to explain this to you because I think that this is a novel that almost defies explanation. I bought this book in big part because I was influenced by this quote on the cover that says it has a hint of Lynch, but I would argue it's much more than a hint of Lynch. I think this is the most Lynchian book I've ever read. I think the term Lynchian gets thrown around a lot, and most books don't necessarily deserve or live up to that, but this one does. Okay, if you're a David Lynch fan, I would recommend this book. This book is a total fever dream. And like I mentioned previously, there's all of these different characters who kind of interconnect. It feels like they all are just living in this blue mist that's pulling them all together and keeping them in each other's orbit. I don't know if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't. Something that I didn't really touch on before, but I know that I mentioned there were these chat logs between like an older woman and a younger woman, not woman, a younger teenager in the US and an older woman in Prague. And then I mentioned that there was a young woman who ends up marrying somebody that she met when she was 16. But it's interesting because the chat logs are between a woman named Amy, not woman, I need to stop saying woman. They're between a teenager named Amy, spelled Amy, and a 35-year-old woman named Dominika. And then the other age gap relationship is between a woman named Amy, spelled Aimee, and another woman named Dominique. So obvious parallels there. And the chat log is so interesting because it just devolves into, I think, maybe the most fever dream sections of the book. And I think in a sense you're left wondering like what's real and what's fake. In my opinion, I think it's pretty clear that the chats are not wholly accurate, and I think it's interesting to use like these internet relationships and these internet chats to dive into like somebody's, not somebody's fantasies necessarily, but like the things that are deep within the recesses of your mind, like your subconscious, using that as a way to imagine your subconscious or a character's subconscious. I don't know, this book is doing a lot and I really enjoyed it. I think Sorka, who is one of the main characters in this book that everything is centered around, is such an awesome character. Her parts were some of my favorites, like the middle of the book where we're spending time with her as she's kind of coming of age and figuring herself out was awesome. I really enjoyed that part. I enjoyed this whole book. This is 5 stars. What a great experience this was too to read in a whole day. I think reading like a fever dream book like this and just escaping into it for like 5 to 6 hours of my day was so not even fun. Like it was fun, but just such an experience. I really felt while reading this like I was watching a David Lynch movie or like sitting there watching Inland Empire, and I'm like, I don't really know what the F is going on, but I'm here for it. I don't think that this book would be for everyone. Like if you're not into transgressive literature, if you're not into David Lynch, but I think if those things are things that you enjoy, if you're a weird girl fiction enjoyer, expand your horizons, read this book. Because I had never seen this book before until I went book shopping the other day and just happened to see this on the shelf and I was like, okay, I'll give that a try. And wow, Wow, my two favorite books of the year so far are books that I had never seen anyone talk about ever, and I just picked up at the bookstore. So maybe that's also a recommendation for you. You should go into the bookstore blind and just pick stuff up that looks interesting to you. I would say that this was a resounding success. I was a little worried that I would get burnt out of reading, but no, I feel right now like I just want to read even more. And I started this with the intention of this being kind of a reset for me, a little vacation from my responsibilities, and that's exactly what it was. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there. So thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.